After setting down the road back in the water, we cruised by Piscah Bay in Kentucky Lake, where graffiti is accepted and expected. We followed Kentucky Lake south until the Tenn-Tom Waterway. On September 9th, Max turned 10 while we were in Kentucky. After cake, we swam in the Sugar Bay anchorage.
There goes the smoke alarm.
We didn't have a television signal in this area when John's sister Jane called to tell us the news of the World Trade Center terrorist attack. Usually you can see at least one plane in the air when you're on open water, but not that day.
We're known to have heralded a plane crashes today. It's unclear just how many people have died or suffered severe injuries in the World Trade Center and Pentagon attacks, but according to New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, all of us have a little quarter like it and we'll just have to see today unfold what they just do. CBS News Update, I'm Ed Grant.
We passed a group of Chris Crafts, headed to or from an event as we continued south to Anchor. The mood on the water changed on 9/11. Flags were flown at half-mast, and people on the loop just seemed anxious to get home. The boat traffic through the Tennessee-Tombigbee Waterway, known as the Tenn-Tom, seemed minimal. The waterway is a 234-mile artificial waterway that provides a connecting link between the Tennessee and Tombigbee rivers. It begins at Pickwick Lake on the Tennessee River, then flows southward through northeast Mississippi and west Alabama, finally connecting with the established Tombigbee navigation system at Demopolis, Alabama. This day, we locked through 4 locks on our way to a marina in Smithville, Tennessee. This one had an 84-foot drop. Some cargo definitely smells better than others. This barge was filled with cedar chips. A principal value of the inland waterways is their ability to efficiently convey large volumes of bulk commodities moving long distances. A 15-barge tow is common on the larger rivers. A single 15-barge tow is equivalent to about 225 railroad cars or 870 tractor-trailer trucks. The inland and intracoastal waterway system handles about 630 million tons of cargo annually, or about 17% of all intercity freight by volume. These are raw materials, or primary manufactured products that are typically stored for further processing or consumption, or transshipped for overseas markets. In Alabama, these beautiful white Cliffs of Epps seem to appear out of nowhere. Throughout this area, you'll see occasional longline fishermen in search of catfish. The surrounding grocery stores only seem to carry catfish in their seafood departments.
You getting footage for the FBI?
Here we anchored and relaxed in Turkey Creek. At Coffeeville, our last of 158 locks, we were able to lock in between two tows. In rainy weather, we cruised through Mobile to Fairhope. Mobile began as the first capital of colonial French Louisiana in 1702. The city gained its name from the Native American Mobilian tribe that the French colonists found in the Bay Area. We wondered if the Coast Guard stood watch over the port more closely since 9/11. We found a little hitchhiker when we got to Fairhope. In Pensacola, things were quiet around town. From Pensacola, we headed to Destin, one of Florida's major sport fishing destinations. It was great to be back in the warm Florida waters and have the dolphins swimming alongside us again. 12 miles east of Panama City, you're likely to see jets maneuvering at Tyndall Air Force Base. The base is named in honor of World War I pilot, First Lieutenant Frank Tyndall. We made our way to Saul Creek, a popular hurricane hole. Here, John struggled with a stern anchor that was caught on what looked like a telephone pole. He later pulled it up on a bow anchor, and we were free to keep moving along. Our family enjoys eating oysters from Apalachicola Bay. On an average, the annual commercial harvest produces enough oyster meat to cover a football field 3 feet deep. Currently, only 5% of the bay bottom produces oysters, and they're actively studying ways to increase the harvest. These people work hard for a living, and as oyster lovers, we were pleased to see that these waters looked very clean. We left Carabel at 5 a.m. and traveled 121 nautical miles to arrive at Cedar Key 12.5 hours later. Along the way, we managed to catch a couple of fish. A quiet anchorage was a great blessing after a long day of cruising. After a couple days at Clearwater, we left for Tierra Verde in strong winds. The boys finished up schoolwork as we made our final push to Fort Myers. Homeschooling these two guys was easy. They really only needed an average of 3 hours of coursework a day, which could be doubled or tripled up on some days, giving them plenty of time to enjoy the sights. They saw things on the trip that most Americans will never see. Like me, they were never able to say which stop along the way was their favorite because each stop had its own unique qualities. Finally, on October 9th, 5,806 nautical miles later, and 9 months later, we ended the trip where we began, in Fort Myers, Florida.